everyone. We're going to start in about 2 minutes. So just giving you a heads up. So everybody, please take your seats. Okay, so everybody, welcome to the inaugural Circular Economy Forum 2022, hosted by Impact Harare. So to start, I'm just going to tell you guys about Impact Harare and what we do. We are a social innovation space. We run different programs. We support entrepreneurs like Tracy and Helen that you're going to hear from in a little bit. Some of the programs that we engage in include like Green Innovation Fair, the micro workspace, and then of course the circularity program. So over the past 6 months, we've piloted the circularity program with like 7 other impact hubs across the world. And the idea is to just propel the SDGs, especially SDG number 12, responsible consumption and production. And we've had 9 entrepreneurs working with us on circular economy principles, circular economy business models. But I'm going to let Helen and Tracy tell you a little bit more about that. And the reason that we organized this forum is because, you know, circularity is a buzzword that everybody is using, but within the context of Zimbabwe, what does that mean for us? Should we be circular? Are we already circular? Who are the players working around circularity in Zimbabwe, and what does it mean within our context? So later on, we're also going to hear from panelists who are working around circularity. We're going to hear about what circularity is. Does it matter for us? Is this the way for Zimbabwe to leapfrog? How is it working in Africa and across the world? So that's what we're here to do. And without any further ado, I'm going to ask Helen to come up and present her company and what she's been working on over the past 6 months with us. So thank you, everybody, for coming.
Oh, wow, lots of people. Okay, lots of you know me. My name is Helen. I'm the owner and operator of a company called Refuse Collection Services. We started off 15 years ago as a garbage collection company. We've maintained our image as a garbage collection company. But I also then discovered the very real need for acknowledging and participating in a separation at source, a system of separating recyclable waste away from waste that ends up at the dump site. It's an aspect of my business that is perpetually growing. It probably takes up about 40% of my business is the collection of recyclable material, which then is taken back to my yard that I operate out of Tinworld and is then further separated before it's sent on to actual recyclers. So no, I'm not a recycler. I'm a collector and a sorter, and then I sell it on to recyclers. Tawanda from Petrico will be talking to you later on about, particularly about PET, a certain type of plastic. I've also become quite involved in the dump site. I was very much involved in the putting out of the fire in 2020, I think it was, the big fire that we had. And it kind of brought home to me where away is when you throw something away. And when you spend 14 days there watching it burn and you know, being in that environment the whole time and seeing how much didn't actually need to be there. It got me quite involved in, you know, really pushing the whole aspect of separation at source, you know, and encouraging people to, yes, we all want our rubbish gone and we're sick and tired of waiting for City of Harare to come and collect said rubbish. So yeah, pay for it to be taken away. But while you're doing that, also start thinking about separating your waste. Impact Hub here have been separating for quite some time now, and we collect theirs. And big corporations are beginning to sign up and become part of it, which then led me to how I kind of met up with Impact Hub, and then I have been involved with them, and they invited me onto this whole circularity panel, and it kind of just ticked all my little boxes, and we started discussing, what more could I do in my business to be circular? Yes, I believe that, what I do is about as circular as I possibly can do. But then I started scratching my head, and I went, I get a whole lot of organic waste from a certain produce company, which I was taking to the dump. And I was like, no. So we've started up a whole composting sector to our little business. So all of a sudden I have become a recycler of, for composting and things like that. So, and the more involved you become with the concept of circularity within my industry, which is recycling, the more you want to do, and the more passionate you get about it. It's a slippery slope. And once you start, even in your own home, you'll start going, I can separate all these different types of plastic away and send them to someone who will recycle them. Then you'll go, and that cardboard I can do something with, and the glass I can do something with, and then suddenly it's like, well, I don't really like using tea bags anymore, so I'll go to loose tea because the tea bags might have plastic in. And as I say, it's a very sharp, slippery slope that you get onto. But the thing is we all need to do this. We all need to accept the fact that we have limited resources, and we have limited space to put those resources when we're finished with them. And those are the most important parts in what I do, and what I try and teach to people is to say to them is, there's only so much, even petroleum, we're going to run out of petroleum one day. And when we do, your plastics are, at the moment, 98% of them are made out of petroleum. So start thinking about using alternatives, or preferably reducing the amount you use. So as I say, then, this whole circularity concept came about, and we started discussing all sorts of different aspects of what we should, what we could do, what more could I do, and we then went on a few field trips, and I have to say the favorite of my field trips was to, I can't think of its name, the village, Kufunda village. And Kufunda village for me, I went in with preconceptions, as you do, and it was just amazing how little waste they generated, and how completely normal it was for them. They were like, this is how we live, and right down to their toilets. They have compost toilets. You do. You go, oh my gosh, toilets, but. And no, not we couldn't have a compost toilet in a block of flats, for example. There's the correct applications for the correct systems and things. But it just went to show that, while we not everyone wants to live as a village, and I get that, but there's aspects of how they live that every single one of us can take away with us. And I think that, and it gets back to what I do and what my industry is all about, is reducing the amount of waste that goes to dump site. That to me is optimal. We have to, if ever you have half an hour and a blocked nose and you want to go and see where your rubbish goes to, just take yourself just for a drive along Alps Road. You don't even need to go in at the moment. To my knowledge, there's no equipment working in that dump site at the moment. To my knowledge, I think we have 8 compactor trucks on the road at the moment, which I think is probably a fairly optimistic count. I don't know whether anyone has seen there's a video that's doing the rounds of all the derelict compactor trucks that are parked in Department of Works yard. Someone's nodding over there. it's a damning testimony to, a completely failed section. But one of the things that, is, and this is, I keep getting back to, is it's so important that we all realize and we see where our rubbish goes to. I had the pleasure of taking a whole bunch of school kids from St. George's there last year, just before the rains broke. And it was just so interesting. And we kind of titled it, "Where is a Way?" And we said, well, here we go. Here's where, when you throw something away, this is where it comes. And we went right into the middle of the dump site, and we went, oh my gosh, look, there's this, and we could identify all the sort of stuff that was there and had been there. And then we went, oh well, look, this has been here for about 6 months, and and how much of it we then went, okay, well, this could have been recycled, so that could have stayed away from the dump site. And and to me that was so important, because that's a whole lot of children who, they're our leaders. Listen, all due respect to anyone who's younger than me, but we're done, we're finished. It's not really our, we've messed it up. It's up to the next generation that comes through to sort it out and to put systems in place to begin to sort it out. And to me, the most important part is to take these kids and to show them what a mess it is, and then, okay, solutions. And I am about solutions. There are always solutions. I will never close a door without making sure that there's another one that's available to be opened. And, so yeah, don't throw it away, but where can it go? And make sure that where it's going to be dealt with responsibly as well. One of the other site visits we did was to Petrico, to just watch what they do to process the PET to make it exportable, because we don't reprocess any of that particular type of plastic within the country. A lot of our plastics are recycled here. There is a big industry, and this is again this whole waste to energy project that is being touted as the silver bullet for waste management in Harare. It's at huge risk, because anyone who buys plastic from the pickers at the dump, if that all gets burnt, you've lost an income, And this is, something that, I've been very involved with City of Harare, trying to, explain to them that, you have a lot of downstream players who you're putting at huge risk by, oh, we'll burn everything, It's not the silver bullet. I don't believe it's the silver bullet that it's touted to be. But getting back to me and my happy, and this to me has been the most amazing journey. As I say, we've practiced and sold the concept of recycling for a good 10 years now. I didn't know what circularity was. I'd never heard of it as a business concept. But we all do it. Our grandparents did it. I used to go in and do these talks to, on what can be recycled at like old age homes. And then I was like, actually, you guys do it anyway. How many times do they, oh, no, you must wash the bottle out and we can use it again to put jam in and things like that. Circularity at its most basic. So we as Zimbabweans are probably fairly good at being circular anyway. It's, we are downstream of a lot of the first world throwaway concept, which yes, sometimes we participate in, but I think for the most part, I think that we're not quite as guilty as first world, which it's always good to be not the worst, I think. But yeah, so that's, I think I've wombled and dawdled, and yeah, shame that my poor daughter. My daughter works for me, and she took over the composting part of it. So yeah, it is. It's a kind of mum and daughter enterprise that we run. We're in the process of doing a bit of expansion at the moment, and we probably up to, I'd say, I haven't counted lately, but probably about 850 clients that we collect from on at least once a week basis. We operate between 4 and 5 trucks a day. And each of those trucks can collect from anything between 20 and 50 clients in a day. So, yeah, we do offer primarily is the garbage service at the moment, because City of Harare just can't. Whether, you know, and it doesn't matter what the politics and everything behind it, they just can't do it, and people don't want their garbage lying around. So that's what we do. That's what I believe in. I have absolutely loved this journey of being on this circularity panel. It's been a lot of laughs, made some good new friends. Tracy has been an inspiration to me as well. And yeah, I don't know, does anyone want to ask any questions? Yeah.
Can you just expand on the circularity? I know you have this internal circulation of things being used and sold, but is there finding useful items that can then be sort of taken to another downstream player to improve and then be sold off as a working item? I mean, that is quite extreme.
Okay.
Do you get where I'm going?
No, I do. We because of what we collect, we collect essentially plastics, paper, glass, and cans. Okay, so I stay away from machinery, and I'm not allowed to deal. My license doesn't allow me to deal with e-waste. Okay, so I don't have any dealings with those two sectors. There are people that do, you know, dismantle machinery and you know, motors and things like that, and, you know, remake. Whether it's a formal business, I can't answer that. What I do allow and certainly encourage is if organizations approach me. Takudzwa is involved in an organization that uses glass, and then they cut them and etch them and then repurpose them into glass, into drinking glasses and vases and things like that. And they have carte blanche. They're very welcome to come and help themselves to whatever glass that they want. You know, that's, you know, part of my kind of, you know, contribution to that's part of society. But so no, I know certainly in first world countries there's a lot of regeneration projects that happen where I spent some time in Italy, and we went to one of these places, and they had all these shining washing machines and everything, and they go, oh, you know, we've just regenerated this one, and it was 5 years old. And I went, oh, that's impressive. And he said, you don't look impressed. And I said, well, my washing machine's 30 years old. He says, no, we can't regenerate that. And I said, well, you know what, we just repair until, you know. So again, I think we as a society here, we do tend to use things a lot longer than that throwaway, oh, you know, it's out of fashion, put it to the side. I mean, we are the recipients of the fashion trade, and that's the crime that really is, actually, you know. But anyway, that's a whole nother story. But so yeah, so when I'm trying to be circular, it's within, you know, the streams that I receive. So yeah, I have spent a fairly considerable amount of time making sure that I've done my due diligence, that I know that I'm pretty much sure where my product, it's like my babies, goes to before they are. But when it is sent for recycling, yeah.
And also, just to add that this is something that we're going to explore a little bit more on the panel around what circularity is. Is it just about designing out waste? Can all businesses be circular? So we'll talk about that.
Thank you. I would like to inquire what the minimum amount of waste you collect is and how much you charge.
Our charges, if you sign up as a regular client, it's $6 per collection. That then you have one collection per week. It happens on the same day of the week, depending on which area you're in. And then there's different permutations from there. You know, that's kind of the basic. And then, you know, it kind of evolves from there. For example, complexes, you know, there's a different price depending on the size of the complex, the size of the units in the complex. You know, it's not a kind of one size fits all. We very much tailor make. When you phone up and I'll say, I'm really sorry, I'm going to ask you a whole lot of questions, and I go, bup, 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 before I can even then, consider. The top end of my charges are, I've just taken on Irvin's as has signed up as part of, they have been shoved into it, but because they are part of InScore, they have had to participate and physically do get involved in waste management and reducing the amount of waste that they send to dump sites. So they've targeted certain areas in their business that they can initiate this concept. And yeah, I mean, to go all the way out to Irvin's and everything, it's what do we? I think it's $20. So I don't believe my charges are unreasonable, but obviously I do have crews and fuel increasing all the time and all the rest of it too. So yeah.
I wanted to find out what assistance are you getting from the city of Harare or subsidizing? In my understanding, you are actually assisting the city of Harare, and are they assisting you in carrying out your business?
I think City of Harare just turns a blind eye. They just go, carry on. Honestly, I don't believe. They know all about me. As we were chatting earlier, they know all about me. I work with them. They're just very happy that I take 800 clients off them that don't phone them up and say, when are you collecting my rubbish? I don't know. No, I get no assistance from them. And if the dump closes for whatever reason, my trucks are parked as well. So, I don't get any assistance from them. Yeah.
We can take 2 more questions.
Thank you so much. You quickly made a mention of your visit to Italy, and then there was also a comment where you were referring to not a silver bullet. I wanted you to elaborate a bit. Maybe you had done that before my arrival, but there is this handover of the dump site to some Italian investor and with some interested person from our local business people. And then there was a mention of this being turned into some energy and what. What is your take on that? I need some elaborate statement to that, so that we do understand. Because at one time, at some stage, Bulawayo tried to quote such an investor, and only yesterday we are hearing that some local guy, has actually taken up the investment in partnership with the Italian. What is your comment on the handing over the dump site? Thank you.
The local component is news to me. I'm very pleased to hear that there is a local component, if there is, because that was always my biggest argument, was why was local not invited into this game first? Point of clarification, it's not Italians, it's Albanians. I don't think that this is possibly the forum for that discussion. There's a lot of unknowns and undeliverables, I believe, in the preconditions that I've seen. I've seen the document, and it's going to be interesting. The fact that private enterprise has been kind of muscled out of this is unfortunate, and we're not pleased as an organization. And yeah, we're feeling a little bit threatened at the moment. So yeah, all right.
The local component, from what I read, is that is a representative of that organization, the Albanian organization, which means it's that sort of one entity. The second thing is, probably you didn't want to elaborate on this aspect, that the upstream players are affected by the destruction of potential resources which will be destroyed at the disposal site. That means no business upstream will happen.
Yeah, so as I say, I think that it's getting a little bit prickly ground here, so let's just move around it, and then, yeah, we can, I'm hoping that City of Harare is going to engage us. Yeah.
All right, last question.
So I live out of town, and what I'm seeing are regular sort of fly drops, where guys are just chucking it out of their boot. But what I've seen is the Rua local board have created something that rivals your Alps Road thing. And if you're ever in the area, look me up, please. I'd love to take you on a tour of that monstrosity that is, I suppose, it's a product of the haphazard allocation of land after the reallocation of land in the compulsory acquisition program. So I'm concerned that you're seeing that in other outlying ex-farming areas.
I would be very happy to chat to you after this. One of the things that I know for a fact is that in all of this, the whole Pomona dump site, because note that I call it a dump site, I do not call it a landfill because it is not a landfill, was supposed to be enclosed 10 years ago. So it was full 10 years ago. Imagine what it is now if it was full 10 years ago. But has still been, I understand 4 proposed sites, but nothing has been finalized. I've been hearing about said 4 sites for 4 years, and we are still no closer to building a landfill for the city right now than we were 4, 5, 10, 20 years ago. Yeah. Anyway, I think I've taken up enough time. Thank you very much. I will be around later if anyone wants to pursue any of these areas, but thank you for listening to me.
All right. Thank you, Helen, so much. Okay, so our next presenter is Tracy. You can just go on up. Thanks.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Tracy Mapfumo. I'm the founder and managing director of Any Streets Private Limited. You'll get to know more about what we do. And I was also a participant of the first circular economy cohort, which was really an interesting program. So what we do at Any Streets, we are a company that manufactures snacks or it's a wide range of seed-based, wholesome, which you might want to call nutritious snacks, which includes energy bars or snack bars, seed butter, trail mix, and the ingredients that we use are sourced locally from small-scale producers, mostly in regions 4 and 5 of Zimbabwe. And we also recently started offering services. We train rural women groups or rural women and youth groups on food value addition. And we partnered with the Zimbabwe Resilience Building Fund last year, and we managed to launch a business for 30 women in Berengwa who are adding value to marula nut snacks. I have them here, and I'll show them around. And then, these are the products that we make. So a range of snack bars, snack bowls, seed butter, sesame seed butter. My experience here at the circular economy cohort was really a learning journey, because I got to understand, like what Helen, my colleague, was talking about, that we were secular, but we didn't know what it was. So I got to understand what circularity is, that it eliminates waste, like we design out waste and pollution. And also, the various principles also includes retaining the value of something for as long as possible and having regenerative natural systems. And I got to understand that there are business models, circularity business models, and the strategies that are involved if you want to be circular in your business. And we had to work on a circularity deck. We had to do a checklist for our businesses, like how circular are we, and actually coming up with a percentage, and how we can measure circularity, the impact of our circularity as a business or as an organization, and how we can finance circularity as well. What was most interesting to me were the field trips. We got to visit Kufunda village, like what Helen was saying. It was really amazing. We got to see what is possible in Zimbabwe and what is being done in Zimbabwe. At Kufunda, they are doing biodynamic farming systems. They've got eco buildings where they use less cement, and they have compost toilets, like what Helen was saying, and they also have wood-saving stoves. Women are trained on how to make those wood-saving stoves. They don't cut down trees. When you get there, you're like, oh, where are the houses? Where is everything? Because they don't just cut down trees. And when we visited Petrico Zim, this was really an eye-opening experience because I got to understand what sustainable extended producer responsibility, I hope I got that right, where companies are actually going an extra mile on what happens to their packaging, what happens after they sell a product, like way away is away, like what Helen was saying. And this was an eye-opening experience where they showed us what they're exporting, what happens to the PET bottles. And then we visited, I don't know what happened to my picture there, but it was Helen's picture, refuse collection services. Again, I got to understand what happens to the waste, what happens to the cardboard paper, what happens to the plastics and everything. And how we are incorporating circularity in our business is through eliminating fruit waste in particular. Globally, it is estimated that of the food that we produce, 10% goes to waste. So we are producing and then we end up wasting. But then a circular economy has got food systems that do not waste, like that do not create food waste. So I've had the opportunity to visit MUSICA 2 years ago on another young entrepreneurs program where we interviewed banana farmers and banana vendors who are mostly coming from Manicaland. And they all talked about post-harvest losses of bananas. And it's mainly due to logistics issues and other issues. So it made me realize that, okay, you know what, bananas can get to a point where they're overripe and these vendors cannot sell them directly to customers, but or an entrepreneur can dry, or any other business can dry the bananas or oranges or pineapples, and then we incorporate them into our snack bars. So we've got a fruity seed bar, which is made with sesame seeds, flax seeds, like what we do with the other seed bars. But then it's mostly dried bananas, dried pineapples, and dried oranges. So that's what we've been doing it, but we didn't know that it was circularity. And also, we always focused on regenerative food production, which is part of circularity, or one of the circularity principles, that we have to have regenerative natural systems, where the way we produce food will reduce the amount of synthetic fertilizers, greenhouse emissions. So we incorporate ingredients that are wild harvested or that are grown organically. I don't want to mention that, otherwise I'll be going the wrong way, but it's grown without fertilizer. So even though it's not organically certified, but a moringa tree growing in a rural area or a rural homestead or a rural honest orchard is not grown using pesticides, chemical pesticides and synthetics. So we've got a baobab and blueberry seed bar, and we've got a moringa and ginger seed bar. We've got a dark chocolate and moringa seed bar. So we can eat something that is produced in a regenerative manner. You can go back a little bit. Then recently, or should I say yesterday, we launched our new packaging. It was really a long journey. If someone runs a business in Zimbabwe as a small to medium enterprise, they will understand that even if you want to improve your packaging to be sustainable, it's not an easy journey. It's really a struggle. So, but we managed to change from cellophane. We used to use cellophane bags. Cellophane, like 100% cellophane bags, are made with cellulose, which is plant material, meaning they're biodegradable. But for them to be heat sealable and waterproof, they're additives, which then make them non-biodegradable. So that's what we've been using But then we have shifted to paper packaging. So we've got our bars wrapped in a non-greaseproof paper or greaseproof paper, sorry, and then into a paper packaging with soft lamination, meaning it's biodegradable. I'm still like wanting to know which one is the correct way, biodegradable or compostable. But then that's where we're heading to, and it's also recyclable. So that's like our recent achievement, and this was through the circular economy program. Because when we wanted to upgrade our packaging, we were thinking, oh yeah, plastic like anyone else. And we actually had our designer design a plastic packaging. But then later on, we realized, okay, the world is going the other way now. Like the trends, circularity is a topical issue, and we have to prioritize sustainability in our organization or in our brand. And why do we talk of? So can you move to the next one? Okay, we also have sesame seed butter, which is, we used to package it in a plastic tub, but now we use a glass jar, which can be recycled over and over again, just like the mayonnaise glass jar. After you use it, you can wash it, you can use it to store other foodstuffs. And then, the reason why we're talking about circularity more and more is it will minimize or ease pressure on our environment. Right now, the environment offers services and resources that we all need, the air, the cleaning, the water. But then when we continuously mount up pressure on it, not managing our waste and everything, it will actually have negative impacts on the way we live here. So circularity means we're taking care of our environment, and it creates vital ecosystems from the food systems, like I was mentioning. And it also stimulates innovation. Like I was talking about the packaging, we were thinking, oh, the usual way, but then we became innovative on how we now package our products, and it then ends up creating jobs and boosting our economy. It is estimated that the global circular economy will be 4.5 trillion, will be worth 4.5 trillion US dollars by 2030. Because when we have got other players jumping on board or realizing opportunities in the circular economy, we are also boosting our economy. And we need support, as I will speak representing entrepreneurs. We need support if we are to become more and more circular. We need a systematic change on how we do things. Just everyone, the way you even choose your household appliances, the way you manage your waste, like Helen went on about, the way you, or even just turning off the tap, something like that. But then, like I mentioned, that we are reducing or we fight against fruit waste. For it to have significant impact, we have to scale up our business. So in that manner, we need finance to scale up the business from where we are. At the moment, we're operating in Harare, and we supply 10 stockists, upmarket stockists, because we target health-conscious, upmarket urban health-conscious consumers. But we are also in Bulawayo, where we are selling to 2 stockists. But if you can scale up and then supply, for example, all food lovers in Zimbabwe, then the impact will be significant. We can even measure that how many banana farmers are now like not losing their bananas because we are using that, we are drying bananas and incorporating them in products. And we also need partners to adopt circularity. You can't be circular in your own vacuum or in your own corner. But if we decide, okay, everyone has to consider sustainable packaging, then we need more people to jump on board and have more businesses that are now circular. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Tracy, for such a nice presentation. And informative. My question is, which we are currently experiencing issues whereby these natural foods are becoming more expensive than other types of food. How competitive are your products from that perspective? I was just alluding to getting to the point of probably there should be a police assistance for you to be penetrating the market effectively.
Oh, yes. Yeah, I agree to that. Thank you very much for that. And I agree to that. In terms of policies, we really need, what can I say, the stakeholders to actually consider what we're doing, especially when we are improving the local market or assisting the local producers by creating a market for them. Yeah, I understand that natural or healthy 100% organic food can be more expensive, but if this is done on a large scale, it can make sense and it can be affordable to any regular citizen. Our products are not really out of reach. So when we were using the cellophane bags, it was $1 for a bar or a packet of seed balls. Right now, we have changed the packaging. We've got a range of 11 product lines. And I think only 2 remained on the $1 price, and the rest are now $1.50. Yeah, so it's really not out of reach, because 80% of our ingredients are sourced locally. Sesame seed is grown all over, Mzarabani, Rusape, and everything. Yeah.
How can we use the protection policy to enhance your business line? That's the point of departure.
Oh, okay.
How can we enhance protection policy towards your industry?
All right.
Any additional?
Okay, thank you. I've observed that your products are quite affordable, and what you're doing is quite impactful. So I think my point more or less correlates to what these 2 gentlemen were saying. Mm-hmm. I think your costs can penetrate the market. Your products can attract the market. So there is a missing link somewhere, somehow. I don't know if it's the government which is supposed to support you guys, or I don't know if it's you guys who are supposed to be more aggressive with your marketing, but I feel like you have quite a good product which can make it on the market, but there is a missing link.
Okay.
Maybe the analysts or the business experts in here can probably assist on that one.
All right. Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah, indeed, there is. I can't say 100% that there is a missing link, because we've been getting support from various programs that support entrepreneurs. But then for the impact to be significant, like I said, it has to be meaningful. If it's financial support, if it's the resources that we need. If I can tell you the journey that I went through, it took a year for us to get here, because companies that offer packaging who have minimum order quantities of 1 ton of packaging. So if you want, you can imagine and how many of these, you need like 1 million of these to get to 1 ton. And when you get a quotation, it's like beyond our reach as young entrepreneurs, and you need machinery. If it's something that's specialized, you want a specialized machinery, you want an engineer to make something that's specialized to your product. We have tried to work with an engineer from a local institute just to get like a very small machine. It couldn't do the job. So indeed there is a link, but we can't completely say that we're not getting support. Yeah.
Okay, so you talk about getting low quality, unsaleable produce from farmers. Is there some of that is just totally not usable, but that could be used in, say, a livestock arena?
Oh yes, there is. If we, like I said, circular to stimulate innovation. If our byproducts can be used for something else, for livestock, then it means we are not wasting anything in the whole food value chain. Yeah, so there are opportunities for people to be innovative with our local produce.
Hello. I just want to find out whether the medicinal value of your products, is being exploited, because I see baobab and bananas, and there's so much in it that we read about, and the value to the body, and various problems that people face.
Oh, okay, thank you very much for that. We actually operated for, I think, 2 years without doing a nutritional analysis. Again, it was beyond our reach, because you need to have a nutritional analysis for every product line that you have. But we managed to do that, so we can even say, if you are consuming a baobab and blueberry seed bar, this is how much energy it has, this is how much protein it has, this is how much unsaturated fats it has. But for things like the vitamin C content, although there are some tests or nutritional analysis that we could not do because of cost, or maybe because they're not done locally. Yeah, so for us to have that whole range of the nutritional value, at the moment we can tell you that baobab contains vitamin C that's 6 times what you get in oranges. But if you are actually to measure or to test this seed bar, it would then need more and more lab tests to be done. Yeah. Oh, it is? Yeah, it has been done already, but this is a combination of various ingredients. So it's different from consuming a raw baobab fruit. When you then consume this, you're consuming sesame seed, sunflower seed, flax seed, dried blueberries, so it becomes a different product.
Okay, I think you can take one more.
Thank you. I was going to wait until I sit in front there to present, but I'm going to preempt. I'm looking for you.
Thank you. Thank you.
I'm representing 2 organizations, but the one that I'm looking for you from is an organization called PFAN, Private Finance Advisory Network. What people are talking about, in fact, when you are speaking, I understand you completely. For a small organization to start and get to where you are, you've invested so much of your own funding, and you need a bit of help to pick you up. So what Private Financing Advisory Network does, it's a global organization which is funded by UNIAO. We look at organizations that are ready to transition from development to commercialization, which is exactly where you are. And we help you with additional coaching. You were talking about all the other things that you need to get your business there. You need, maybe you need some feasibility studies, maybe you need, you need to get your project to bankability, basically. So PFAN provides that service to you for you to become bankable, and then we link you up with financiers or with investors. And the investors that we look for you for, they can, okay, we can go below $1 million, but ideally we like to look for at least $1 million to about $50 million US for you to be able to do what you need to do. And right now, so I'm not going to present about PFAN afterwards, so because I'm already talking about it. So there's issues to do with the projects that we're talking about. We look at projects that are in climate adaptation, climates that are in clean energy, and also as recent as this month, we're actually looking at financing women. So you're fitting all the boxes, you're ticking all the boxes. I really, really need to talk to you, and we need to talk more.
Thank you very much.
And on that note, I think we should take a break very briefly before we do the panel. But I just want you guys to just think about what circularity means to you right now, and then think about what it means to you after the panel. So just hold that thought. So let's take a quick break, and then we'll come back in about 5 to 10 minutes. Thank you, Tracy and Helen. Hello? Hi, everybody. Please, can you come back around? Thank you. And please, can I have my panelists come up and take their thrones? I realized that I didn't do any housekeeping before, so I'm going to do that now. Please feel free to get bottles of water. That's water, you know, that's our little aim at trying to be circular. You can just drink right out of the bottles. And then the bathrooms are behind this wall for the ladies and the gents. And then we are also streaming online. So if you'd like to go on Area 46's YouTube page, you can see it. And then if you comment, you know, get people involved so that they see what's happening over here. So thank you. We're going to move on to the next part of the program with the panelists, and I'm going to let them introduce themselves first.
Thank you. Good morning. My name is Chandim Tubuki Makuyana. I'm representing an organization called TNO and KEPSA. It's two organizations, one in the Netherlands and one in Kenya, which did a study on circular economy, the potential for developing a circular economy in Zimbabwe. We did the study in Zimbabwe, Zambia, and Malawi. I'm here with my colleague who's sitting right there at the back, Andrew Chinyepe. And if I have any difficult questions, I'll just throw them over to you. Thank you very much.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Rejoice Lunga. I'm coming from SNV Netherlands Development Organization. I'm the Gender and Energy Advisor. Thank you.
Good morning. The name is Raymond Makande. Today I'm here representing African Circular Economy Network. We have been doing some bit of small work in the country, and I think we'll more details as we go along. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Tawanda Masuka. I am the COO for a company called Petricozim. We are involved in the recycling of PET bottles.
All right, thank you, everyone. So as you've heard before from Helen and Tracy, they have their idea about what a circular economy is. And I think for us as Impact Hub in general, it's really about, I don't know how many of you guys have heard about donut economics. Show of hands. Just Helen. So basically what it is, you know, people, as people, we need certain things to survive and to live, quality of life, but we also have our natural environment, right? So the whole idea of circularity is how do we go about doing that? How do we get our water, our food, health, peace and justice, social equity, our networks, housing? How do we do it in a manner that respects the planetary boundaries? So by this, we're talking about the ozone layer depletion, climate change, ocean acidification, we're talking about chemical pollution and all of that. How do we create an environment that works for us within our planetary boundaries? So I'm going to ask from the panel what they think a circular economy is. Is it just about designing out waste? How do you incorporate it within the context of your organizations? So maybe first we can talk about what is a circular economy?
Thank you. I'll take advantage of the first move advantage. You know, circular economy, for me, it's a buzzword. Perhaps some of the principles, we have been practicing them. You would have heard about things like sustainability, triple bottom line, you know, all these big words around sustainability. I think they talk to each other. If you look at circular economy, so it's about use of resources in a responsible manner, and by that, we are saying that you are trying to limit or eliminate waste and reduce pressure on virgin materials. I think for us in the recycling industry, our understanding is that we are offering an alternative to virgin material, which is expensive and which is extractive, you know. So we are offering an alternative, and by that, we're already making a contribution towards the circular economy. So for me, those are the two key deliverables that we'll be looking at, seeing that some of the resources are finite, they're expensive, and you know, with the pressure in terms of the population growth and other things, there's a risk that some of the resources might actually deplete in the future. So yeah, I think that would be my introduction in terms of my take on circular economy for now.
Okay, I think building on some of the things that you mentioned, I think I would like to focus on the component of regeneration. I think this is one of the component issues that when you are talking about circular economy, we have to emphasize that part, because if you are going to look at the history of circular economy, it it was bred, or circular economy was bred from the concept of that things need to regenerate. So although now it has been extended to factor in what my brother was mentioning, that the movement from using virgin material to recycling materials, but also to emphasize the point that circular economy is also looking at bringing in materials that are actually regenerative by nature. So basically, you're looking at something that naturally grows, that you don't need to crack your head over, some that you can plant and put back into the system and recover it again somewhere, somehow, so that we maintain the energy cycle. If we use a bit of little physics that I have in my head, that we shouldn't lose that energy that we.
All right, thank you. I think I also have the advantage of being probably one of the second last speakers because most of everything has been said, so there's nothing much left to say. For me, I think when I think of circular economy, I think I would take it from the point of a woman, like being, I think for most of us as women, we are the ones that are mostly responsible for running the household. We are responsible for, I think if not everything that happens around the house in terms of waste production, you know. So for me, I think we also need to look at the side where you're actually conserving resources rather than cooking, you know, a pot full of sadza when every time you're always using a quarter of it. Why not just cook a quarter of the pot, because that's what's enough for the people that stay in the household. And you just for me, I always have a policy that we dish what someone finishes. You don't dish so that you can leave some in the plate. But in our Shona culture, my mom would always tell you that if I say it in Shona, utikana mienzaka uya akapedza sadza zvinoratidza anakuguta anofana kutosiya something more plate. But well, for me, I just believe that we have to start from the whatever we are using, we must just use enough. Even if we are buying whatever you're buying from the shop, you must buy something that you know you're going to use, not something that you're going to keep and stash away and probably then.
Thank you. Since everyone else has already spoken, I'll go more academic. From a point of view of circular economy, there are so many authors and what people have said it is. But for me, in one line, it boils down to nothing goes to waste. Nothing. And then having said that, there are what we call the 7 R's that are related to circular economy. Choose to do with you can have more life of the product. You can repair it as many times as possible. And I think Helen was talking about washing machine. That's the concept of repairing. There's the concept of reusing. I think, yeah, it was Tracy who was talking about now going to a glass jar, which you can reuse several times, right? There's also the concept of recovering, right? I'll go into that a little bit more, later. But if you have to have waste, can you recover it so that you can actually get more life out of it? I'll use an example of a plastic bottle, a PET bottle, right? That plastic bottle, when you look at it, it has more lives that it can become. It can transform to be what it is at the moment. It can become a pen. It can become the sole of a shoe. It can become the outer part of your lens. It can become a brick. It can become a fencing pole. It can become something else, right? So there's the concept of recovering waste. Then there's also the issue of refurbishing and repairing. For me, it's almost the same, right? We always, most people talk about. I think that's also what Mr. Suka was talking about, how you can actually use the same materials, the recovered materials, recycle them to become materials rather than using virgin materials. And so you remove pressure on the natural resources that we actually have. I would say for me, that's basically what I think about when we talk about a circular economy. Nothing should go to waste. And it's a whole process that comes from designing, the rethinking and redesigning of what we are talking of what redesigning plastics to become biodegradable so that they don't become a nuisance in society. We're thinking of, I saw her when she was when she had an orange there. Some countries have even gone further to actually use orange peels to make fabric, right? So it's a whole concept that has a whole cycle around it. Thank you.
All right, thank you. That's fantastic. So really we're talking about regenerating, sharing, optimizing, looping, exchanging, and all that good stuff. So now if you can go a little bit more into your organizations and how they incorporate circularity. I mean, Tawanda already talked about how they recycle PET bottles, but maybe you can also just talk about the industry as a whole and how that started for you.
Thank you so much for that. I can literally spend the whole day talking about petrocosm. Look, I think probably the industry is not getting the acknowledgement that it deserves in terms of the effort that is also making towards the circularity. The case of petrocosm, I think there are 2 or 3 principles that are at the center of the organization. The first one is extended producer responsibility. To say the companies have said, look, we want to demonstrate responsibility over our. The second one is self-regulation. I think there's a danger that if you don't take action, someone else will do it for you. Risk. If there's a problem that is causing and you are not able to offer a solution, someone else will come up with a solution that might not be in your best interest. So if you look at petrocosm, I think those were the issues that that the companies that decided to set up this were looking at. The third one was best practice, to see what is happening elsewhere in other countries, in developed countries, what is happening with respect to the problem that the industry was facing. So those are the 3 principles that really sit at the center of how the petrocosm project was conceived. I think around 2010, 2011, I think dollarization was at the peak during that time. There was a lot of investment that was happening in PET bottling in the beverage industry. There are a lot of advantages. I can go to town about that in terms of why there's general migration. If you look at the packaging trends from other packs like your can or glass into plastics. But I think the overriding one is that it is very cheap to use plastic as a package. So there was a lot of investment that was happening in PET recycling, in PET packaging. But then that investment was not, there was no corresponding investment in terms of what to do with the waste that was going to come out of that. Because the PET bottle by design is a one-way package, or what we ordinarily call single-use, right? And diapers, I think there's 2 issues there. K-Lite has since been banned. So the industry decided to intervene, having seen the risks that were there, to come up with this project to say, let's find a solution. Let's find a solution that can deal with the waste that was going to be generating, having looked at the investment that they've made. So this is how Petrico came about. But I think one interesting thing for me about how the project was set up is it created an opportunity for companies that are ordinarily in competition, that are competing in the market space, to come together and invest jointly in the same project that addresses a common problem. So you have Dairyboard on that table, you have Delta on the other table, you have Tanganda there, you have Coca-Cola there. These are companies that are competing for shelf space in a supermarket. But because of the overriding need to address a common problem, they were able to come together and say, look, let's come together and create a company that we all own and address a particular problem that is cross-cutting. And they realized that it was not going to be sustainable for each company to come up with its own solution, because the problem was cross-cutting. So in terms of how we contribute to circularity, like I mentioned earlier, I think a lot of the things that come out of circularity, they are not really new in terms of the principles that we have been, driving. If you look at our vision is to create a sustainable model, a model for sustainable extended producer responsibility. So we would want to see other models that come up after us to say this is how companies are taking responsibility for their packaging. That's basically our vision. But if you're going to go into the nitty-gritties, it's all about reducing the environmental footprint of PET as a package. So do whatever it takes. We are not, we are open to ideas. We are open to any suggestions that can reduce the environmental footprint of PET packaging. That's really what we want to do. So as a result, find that we work with a plethora of stakeholders. People will come up with various ideas in terms of how do we limit the footprint of PET into the environment. So one of the issues is obviously recycling, but there are bigger issues around. There are issues that we can do at our level as the recycler, but there are also issues that can happen upstream. For example, at the producer level, there are issues of design. For me, that's the most important part in terms of contributing to circularity. Because the problems that the recycling industry face, I think 90% of it emanates from design, that the product was not correctly designed. And as a result, it then creates a lot of problems. And in PET, one of the biggest challenges that we face is around labels. There's irresponsible use of labels by bottlers. There's no consideration whatsoever in terms of how the label is going to behave, or how does it contribute to recycling. So, yeah, those are some of the key issues. I said, if the issues are addressed at the design stage, that's a big contribution to recycling and to circularity. So for me, I think at this point, that would be my submission.
Thank you so much.
Okay. As the African Circular Economy Network, I would just be using ASEN henceforth, so to make it easier than the whole sentence. Basically, this is an organization which is formed by a group of, should I say, experts in the field of various experts in terms of environment, chemistry, and so on. The idea behind the organization is to promote circularity. Now, if I would say the composition of members in the case of Zimbabwe, we've got researchers, we've got industrialists. I myself, as I sit here, I'm employed by SIRIDC, a research organization of government. We've got colleagues who are employed by this company which makes GPROC and so on. So it shows to show the facet that we're not just the same kind of animals, but we're a mixed group of people. Now, what we have done as an organization, I'll look at the work that our colleagues we have done as ASEN. In terms of Zimbabwe, most of the work is currently ongoing. So I don't want to, because some of the issues might still be on the sensitive side. I've got clauses to adhere to. We have done circular economy assessments for wine industry, olive industry, and we've also done a circular assessment for our own. At some point, I think for all of us, you remembered we talked about the biodigester using Harare waste and so on in terms of Mbare waste. We also did a circular assessment, circular economy assessment for it. Now, the difference, what we as ASEN, we focus on is we want to run away from this concept where we just, because it's green, then it's good. So we tend to use a life cycle assessment approach to then go through like, okay, the activity that we are saying is we're going to introduce as a component of closing the loop, the circular loop. Is it really closing, or are we creating new issues? So this is why we then go into analyzing that, okay, we say we're bringing in this on board. I'll just use my colleague next. They said, okay, yes, we are collecting our PET bottles. The next question, we do whatever processes that we do to them. Then what happens thereafter when we ship off to the company? It's also in terms of full circularity, we then look at what is happening to the end product of one stage. Yes, the next stage is supposed to be taking the recycled material, but what are they doing? Are we really closing the loop, or we're creating a new problem? So those are some of the things that we have tried to look at, because we're trying to say, let's look at the whole array of environmental issues that we have. But as circularity to also detect, it's not about the environmental issues. I think also to answer a question which I realized we didn't really touch on, that is it all about substitution, eliminating waste from the process? No, it's not all about just removing waste. There are many other factors. I think some have been mentioned. But even the social issues that we are also looking at, labor issues. Are people actually remunerated well in these jobs? Those are some of the things that we also look at. We don't stop at just, yeah, this is a green activity, this is good, we have removed waste, but there are other things that are also of interest to us. So I've also looked at, in terms of the mining industry, particularly the gold processing. So I've also looked at the environmental impact of that from a circular perspective. So we took two approaches where we wanted to see whether how our the performance of state-owned mining facilities, then we're actually moving on to a privately owned mining facility, then we'll do a comparison. Hopefully soon there'll be some papers published about that. So ASEAN is just engaged in all those kind of work, in all these kind of activities with the core business to say, let's promote circularity, but by promoting in a context of Zimbabwe, we might be saying we're starting in quotes, but we also were looking at that there are things that are happening on the ground, and we're trying to also to measure how circular those activities are. I think that's where ASEAN is with Zimbabwe. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
All right. So for SNV, the aspect of circular economy is covered under the energy sector. Mostly, I think I can say it has happened by default, because normally we focus, originally as SNV, we've got three sectors that we work in. We've got the agriculture, the wash, and the energy. And at some point, I think we actually used to call it the renewable energy. Then we just like now currently we're calling it the energy, because we are also promoting, while we're promoting renewable energy, we're also promoting other forms of efficient energy sources. I think there's the issue of cook stove that has been mentioned. It's something that we are also promoting. In as much as it's not clean energy, it also reduces the waste that it can actually happen if people were not 100% focusing on renewable energy. So those are the areas that we've been making in. In Zimbabwe, I think our work in the energy sector has been, well, we can say we've not really been out there a lot, but I think we are known for our biogas project that we did some years back, the Zimbabwe Domestic Biogas Program that we once implemented in partnership with the government of Zimbabwe and HIVOS and other partners. And so I think with biogas, like what Chandi mentioned, I think our theme then was like, nothing goes to waste. We are trying to see how we can make use of the waste that is produced at a household level, maybe in the rural areas, and how that can actually be transformed into energy, so the households are benefiting from the energy, as well as the organic fertilizer that is produced from there. That was our initial work. And then we've also gone on to then focus on the recycling side of the circular economy, where we have had several projects where we are promoting the innovativeness and entrepreneurship around that area. So we have actually supported a number of entrepreneurs in this space. Some have gone on to produce plastic roof tiles that then are probably targeting to replace the cement roof tiles that are normally used with other type of materials. Some have actually gone to produce, to replace, these automotive oils, normally they're petroleum based, but we actually have some youth that have been assisted by the organization to actually produce vegetable oils that then replace your brake fluid, your engine oils, but those are now vegetable based rather than petroleum based. And in terms of recycling, I think we've also been promoting these young entrepreneurs, youth, specifically to have project startups in the space, in the recycling space, looking at all the areas of the economy, particularly even including agricultural waste. So currently in our project, we actually have a component where we're actually financing. So I think normally what we have done is SNV is, we know that sometimes it's difficult for actually to attract funding when you've got a greenfield project or just an idea. So these projects that we've had in the past, like the Green Innovation Guy Hub project, we actually were promoting just young people that had just ideas, probably nothing that has been tested, but just an idea. Then we say, you can come to us, we help you to refine your idea. We are also engaging other experts in the industry. Then they come and help the youth to refine their business ideas so that we can actually try out whether it's something that can work or it cannot work. Then where it needs refinement, they are also working with these experts to refine these ideas so that they become bankable. So I think the advantages, of the development space, then I think it gives the people out there the space to try to do trial and error before we actually commercialize. Although we actually also then take pride when actually what we would have promoted then become successful. Then maybe funders like PFund then would then be at the other part of the financing arm where someone has actually tried something and it's been proven that it actually works. Then they are there to then provide the commercial funding. But ours mostly has been the grant funding that has been available. So we actually have a project that we call the Opportunities for Youth Employment Project. We do have some targets that we're working on in the recycling space. So we have some youths that we are promoting, and we actually have some, especially young women that have been interested in the recycling space. Some are actually exporting to South Africa their waste. And I'm also glad that Petrocosim is here because it's one of the companies that we have partnered with on the project, who are also helping us on that aspect. Yeah, that's all.
Right, awesome. Thank you, Rejoice.
Thank you very much. It's always difficult to be the last speaker because some of the issues would have been covered by the others. So I'll try and skip some of the issues that the others have already covered. I mentioned that I'm representing an organization called TNO. I'm representing two organizations, TNO and also PFund. I've already spoken about what PFund does. It's really about funding, and Rejoice has also briefly spoken about how we actually maybe we take their graduates and then we try and promote them to become bigger. For TNO, what we did is starting last year, we were doing a study on trying to develop or looking at the potential for developing a circular economy from household waste in the 3 countries that I mentioned. So the study was really looking at household waste, not all waste. It was looking essentially on 6 waste streams, which are plastic, paper, metal, organic waste, agricultural waste. I always forget the last one, glass and metal. And why were we thinking there's a need to develop circularity in the waste sector? It's, I think I'm going to quote Dr. Wingwiri, who's sitting in front here. He always says that in nature, there's never been anything wasteful. It was always a cycle. But when communities came in now, as human beings, we started introducing certain things that were not, that could not complete the cycle. And he always argues, you know what, organic waste is waste that is created by the agriculture sector, right? So why is there no responsibility, to take Mr. Masuku's words, why is the agriculture sector not taking responsibility by taking back that waste and converting it into something else, right? And when you look at it from that point of view, the rationale for circularity becomes really simple and glaring. It's a way of making sure that we complete the cycle, first and foremost, but it also, there's potential that you can actually make, you can create self-sustenance within an economy by just focusing on issues to do with circularity. When we did the study, we looked at everything. We looked at the whole value chain, starting off from the waste itself. And then we looked at the collection, the collection of waste. So we also talked to Helen at some point and other collectors. We looked at the aggregators, because there are waste collection centers that are actually popping up, who actually help with the recovery of waste. We also talked to recyclers. I think we also visited Mr. Masuku, sorry, at their offices. And we also looked at the remanufacturers. So our idea was to start off with a baseline to understand what is on the ground right now. For us to be able to say, is there potential or is there no potential, we needed to understand what was on the ground. We also looked at the policy framework. When we interviewed stakeholders, we had different methodologies that we undertook or that we used, and Andrew is really good at explaining the methodologies. Then out of those methodologies, we mainly talked to stakeholders who were in the waste sector, and not only on the waste sector, because we're looking at waste and we're also looking at the market for that particular waste. Remember, I said for us, when we look at waste, we also visualize what it can become, the life that it can actually be transformed to. So those, we call that, that's the value chain that we are looking at, how waste eventually becomes another product. So we did a baseline study, we did waste characterization. We just wanted to verify some of the studies that had already been done about how much waste is out there. Because when you look at circularity, we're looking at the business case. It's no longer just collecting it because you want to, you also make sure that if someone is actually getting into it as a business, there's an incentive for it. You don't want to keep people busy but poor. You need to make sure that there's a value in what they are doing. And we also wanted maybe to be able to understand that if we come up with recommendations, there will be recommendations that will excite people to get into the sector. And I think also, as Helen said, these are some of the principles of circularity. We've been doing them for a long time. The word circular economy is just a nice, new, fancy way of saying things that we already have. So we looked at policies, and we also realized that there was quite a lot that talked about the 7 R's that I was talking about, like recycle, reuse, it's already written on this portal. So they are not new concepts, right? So baseline study, what is on the ground. Then after that, what we did was to say, okay, let's pick one waste stream that each country prioritizes, and we show how circularity can happen, what needs to be in place. In Zimbabwe, picked organic waste. Zambia picked plastic. Zambia and Malawi picked plastic. We picked organic waste. And this was through consultations with stakeholders. It wasn't really, the consultants who did that. And from organic waste, we tried to now analyze to say, okay, if it's going to be, is it circular at the moment? Where are the gaps? What needs, where are the strengths, where are the gaps, what would need to happen for this particular waste stream to be circular? So we took a deep dive then into the quantities that are there, ideally what you need to have in place. And some of our, we've got these reports, and I think they'll be available for reading and everything. We were working with the NDE because the project is funded by CTCN. They have an NDE in the country. That's the Ministry of Environment. And all these reports and all these studies that were done are also available for sharing. But basically what we found out was there is potential for circularity. The only challenges are that there are certain things in policy that are there already, like the issue of private sector. I think it was, Mr. Piri from HIT who was asking, are you getting any help from City Council and everything? We realized that in statute, it's inscribed, it's written that private sector can actually be contracted by local authorities to collect waste on their behalf. Except that in Zimbabwe, it's there, but it's not being implemented. Shall I put it that way? It's not being practiced. So there are certain policy issues that are there that could help circularity, but they're not being implemented. So what do policymakers need to do? There are also issues to do with our mindset. We always think dump sites, we always think landfills, but then that's disposal, that's right at the end. Why are we not thinking about collection centers? Why are we not creating little areas like I don't know if my gray hairs are showing, but a long time ago when I was growing up, we used to have skip bins in areas, right? So you didn't really need your local authority to come and collect waste. You could actually just get your waste and go and throw it at the skip bin, and at some point the local authority would come and take the skip bin and go and empty it, and So those were models of waste collection centers, right? For organic waste, it's bulky, it's difficult to transport. Well, not difficult, it's expensive to transport because you're transporting a low value product, right? So, but what can this waste become? And for us, we recognize that it can become a lot of things. It can become waste to energy. It can become organic fertilizer. It can become compost. It can become briquettes. It can become all sorts of things, right? What is practical for Zimbabwe? That's where I can speak all day, but basically our two products that we came up with was a roadmap for Zimbabwe, and we also designed a pilot project. And I think the process where we are now is to see whether those can be funded to take them to a better, okay, sorry.
All right. Thank you, Shandi. She started going into the recommendations already, so I'm like, should we just skip to that? But you did bring up two important issues. I think one around policy implementation, which I wanted to ask. I think there was a point where plastic was banned from the supermarkets, and then next week after that, then the plastics re-emerged. So let's talk about issues around policy implementation. And then I think Tawanda and Raymond also talked about this idea of greenwashing. K-lights were banned, but what is the substitute now, and how does policy address that? Are we really closing the loop, or are we just substituting one bad thing for another? So anyone can go. Talk issues around policy implementation and greenwashing, and what is the starting point for that?
Okay, I hope our best answer. I'm going to pick on something that she was talking about earlier on, about waste, and there being waste. I'm sorry to my dear friends, colleagues, or like the Helens and everyone. For, should I say, the tree hugger version of circular economy.
It's just business, entrepreneurship, no tree hugging.
No, it's the point that I'm trying to. There's a point of what we're also saying that, yes, recycling is part of the circular economy process, but it's a state or a process of something that exists that we do not want, in the sense that there should be no waste in the first place. I know the engineering and manufacturing guys will tell you that's impossible. We won't get into that debate. The idea being, we're saying that let's take an example for a laptop. We should get to a point where, like, the components, everything in a laptop should be easy for us to, like, oh, this is dead, or this is, okay, end of life arrived, I can take this and go put it somewhere else, and all that. we should get to that point where things are like that. Because the problem with a mindset where we say we end up with waste, it promotes a consumptive behavior, which where our problems start. Lifestyle, so for the term sustainable lifestyles. As long as we do not have sustainable lifestyles, we allow for the generation of waste. Yes, of course, it means for people who are in business in recycling and so forth, they may lose out in the long run. But as you build circular economy and making it stronger, it means the amount of waste in the system becomes less and less and less. Hence, we then need those policies that promote business models that work for us. If I were to say, like, okay, the challenges which have been there, one of the obvious barriers that we've seen as we have been discussing from the presentations is financial capital, or should I say competitiveness of products that are based on recycled materials. You look at it that when that product goes on the market, if it's supposed to be organic or recycled, you'll find that it may tend to be expensive. I won't even ask how much these bottles are being charged to you, or when you're acquiring them, how much they were charged to you. But that mentality that this is going to be a recycled product or an organic product, the price tag goes up. It shows that there's something missing in our policies. We should, I think the Minister of Industry and Commerce, they've got that fair competitive policy and so forth, but somehow it's not trickling down to everything. It's got certain products that have that advantage. So this is, at the end of the day, we find that in as much we're trying to progress in terms of our circularity, some loops remain open because of the fact that lifestyle-wise, we have not changed, and our system is promoting that, should I say, improper lifestyle that we're having.
I will speak briefly about one of the key glaring gaps that we found. We found that there were some policies that were okay, or it was there, but one interesting one that we found to be missing was in the agriculture sector. There's a lot of talk on organic use of what do you call it? Using organic fertilizer, going organic and all that, but there is actually nothing in policy, nothing that says as a country we are thinking about organic. We looked at the agricultural policies, all of them, we couldn't find anything. And for me, that was a bit surprising because we also have a policy where we want fertilizer, where we want to localize production of fertilizer because we're spending too much money, too much foreign currency on importing fertilizers. And we're talking about localization or producing fertilizer locally, but no one, there doesn't seem to have anyone we have picked that we need to put organic fertilizer or compost or bioslurry. None of those words are there in the policies. For me, that was a bit shocking.
And just take notes, because if there's anyone in the audience who can address that, then please address it.
Right. I think for me, I would also think that maybe research and development should be one of the areas that we should also be focusing on if we want to move towards circular economy. I think for me, I would be thinking maybe the starting point could be in terms of the waste streams that we have, which ones are the, like, we can say that which areas do we produce the most waste, right? And then we work backwards to see if there are going to be alternatives of this kind of waste, what should be done. So I don't know the academics out. Then, unfortunately, I only know, maybe there are two. Dr. P to say, what are the institutions doing? Because we are also promoting this innovation and this research is to say, if we have, for example, the plastic, what is the next thing that we could replace the plastic that could be sustainable? Can researches be done in terms of alternatives of those replacements that can be done, so that maybe we can also address it from that angle, where we are saying we have done researches and we are also then lobbying to the government and saying, this is what we have researched on and it works, and this material can replace this and it works perfectly well. And then we also look at it like an advocacy evidence-based advocacy, because it's something that we have tried and tested. Because I think for maybe for the government, it's easy to say they can wake up and have banned some of these materials from using, but do we already have readily available alternatives for us to use if we were to ban all plastics, or even the carrier bags? We wake up and say tomorrow, no more plastic bags. Do we have an alternative of us replacing it with?
Yeah, thank you. I think just speaking on what she has just said, I think we do have that challenge to say we have seen that K-Lite has been banned, but was there an alternative? There wasn't. And so you have K-Lite coming in another form, probably that is worse than what was there. Yeah, so I think at a policy level, there are a lot of gaps. There are a lot of gaps. I think in our sector, what we've also seen is that there are various pieces of legislation that talks to management of waste. But I think the implementation and the lack of awareness, even at industry level, that there is such legislation that exists, or is it the enforcement that is missing? Yeah, so for example, I think in our sector, I find that there's a statutory instrument 98 of 2010 that makes it clear that all companies that are involved in the manufacturing of plastic bottles have a responsibility to create a return mechanism. Yeah, that's the English that they use, return mechanism for those bottles from the market. But you engage companies, a lot of companies, they are not aware. They are not even aware that there's such a legislation. So I think there's a lot of work that still needs to happen. And I think building on that, what we also find is that there's a lot of greenwashing. It's very easy to say I'm going green and green that, green this. But on the ground, sometimes it's a different story. There's a gentleman who said that everyone wants to go green until it costs money. Yeah, until such time when it costs money, then you really see the organizations, the people that are serious about going green. And I think this is really the case in our country, that every company will tell you that they are going green. But look at how much budget are they putting? What projects are they doing? Bankable project. What investment are they putting in going green? Sometimes there is not even a budget, So I think those are some of the issues. There's one point that I also need to mention around some of the gaps in circularity. I think Chandi talked about the business case. I think the recycling that is happening in the country is more social driven. Yeah, it's not business driven. It's not the business case is missing. If you look at how we started ourselves, it was not a business case. It was about responsibility. We just want to be responsible for our packaging. But now lately, I think a lot of questions are being asked about how can we be, how can the whole model be sustainable? How can it be inclusive? How can you make more money? Is it not profitable? Things like that. So the business questions are being asked. But I think one of the key issues that we've also seen is that there's need for some drivers for circularity to be successful. For me, the key issue around a lot of waste materials that to grapple with is the market. To say, is there a market? Once the market question is addressed, I think we can achieve full circularity. I'll give you an example in our sector. Right now, as we speak, there's shortage of the material. There's a shortage of PET, recycled PET. There's a shortage globally. There's a shortage. We see it on the street, but where we want to sell it, where we are selling it, there's a shortage. We're overwhelmed with orders for the material. So there's a gap. But what has caused that shortage? You realize that there are big corporates that have committed to recycled content in their packaging, that have made a commitment. Companies like Coca-Cola, like Pepsi, who have said, look, by 2030, you want to be using 50% recycled content in our packaging. So that creates the demand, that creates the market. And as a result, you're already seeing some shortage. So that has been a big trigger in terms of promoting circularity. So I think in all the other sectors, it's very important that the market issue is addressed. And once the market issue is addressed, for me, I think it will fall into place.
All right, thank you for those insights. So it brings me to this question where a lot of experts, a lot of circularity experts think that the citizen is at the center of circularity, and this deals with issues of awareness, creating the markets, policy implementation. So, for example, in Zimbabwe, according to Emma, we produce about 1.7 million tons of solid waste every year, and 90% of it is recyclable. But how much of it is actually recycled, Helen? Not a lot, and that's because we as the citizens don't do our part. We don't separate at source. We are not maybe aware of that. So how do you address that issue of the citizen being at the center of circularity, and how can we go about making that happen?
Thank you for that question. For me, I'm thinking that probably, I think when you're starting with as a citizen, probably at some point we've all been culprits of it. You know, sometimes it takes a lot of effort for one to actually start engaging in the circular economy, because normally people always want the easier way out, right? When you at the home like setup where you are having to sort out your waste into different into different bins. Probably because it's different bins, it may also require you spending more money in making sure that that happens. But I'm thinking for maybe Helen here, since you already mentioned that you've got quite a big clientele that needs their waste collected, probably they're the ones that are going to be starting to say, you know what, we are now going to be starting to be collecting our waste, it has to be sorted. If we have to collect waste from you, it has to be sorted in this way. And then you also provide that capacity to say, how do we sort this waste? So that when you're collecting, if any waste that is not sorted, then we are not collecting. But because naturally people also don't want to have piles of rubbish in their homes, probably then they'll end up complying, because it now becomes a compliant issue because you have things that are lying around and you have nowhere to put them. So I think at the collection point, yes, the citizens are at the center of circular economy, circularity, but I also think even the collectors then will also need to put in place things that happen. I remember the times when COVID was at its peak, right? You remember some service provider will say, we are not coming to your home, and if you are not delivering water, if you're not vaccinated. So then if you're not vaccinated, if you're ordering your water, then no one is coming to your house because they also want to prove that you have been vaccinated. So I think maybe those are some of the things that we need to start thinking, and also make sure that then it will also be easy to ensure compliance without then pushing people away from participating in this responsible rubbish collection.
I'll go further to say that I think it's a value chain. I don't think it's necessarily the citizens on their own. For example, why am I saying this? If I'm collecting my waste, if I'm separating my waste at home, and local authority comes with their truck, which just puts everything in one, then my efforts are fruitless, right? I may be doing my part, but the other part of the value chain is not doing the part. So it's a value chain. It has to involve everyone. All stakeholders have to be involved in that mindset. And the awareness is not necessarily, I think, with just citizens. Of course, yes, citizens have to be part of it. They're a critical part of it, but it's a value chain, because one can't do without the other. I've just given the example of the waste collection. If Helen collects separated waste, like Mr. Masuga said, if there is no market for that, then what's the incentive for her to actually enforce or to insist on people separating, right? Somebody at the end needs to use it or needs to want it for her to be to actually have a motivation or incentive for it. So for me, it's entirely about motive. What motivates me to separate? What motivates the collector to separate? What motivates the person in the other part of the value chain to separate? So if we're going to have a circular economy, we need to put the right kind of incentives. And by incentives, I'm not just talking about money. I'm talking about what's in it for me. Why would I want to do that? Why should I be doing that? Right from the beginning, or to all stakeholders in the value chain. Thank you.
Problem, I'm going to add a rather controversial one into the equation. I think as she has mentioned, of course, it's the whole value chain. That's a definite, because there's the one, she mentioned R&D, and one of the biggest problems that the research and development people have is good idea, bad business case. That's one of the biggest issues. We may come up with nice, good ideas. Trust me, there are a lot of good ones, which are very circular in nature, environmentally friendly in nature. But now when it goes to the business side of things, it doesn't work. So that's an element that needs to be cultured, built into the R&D side of things. It's more so in our own country. Then looking at the consumer, a consumer, for lack of better words, is like should I say, a sponge. They take in what just is around them. So for lack of better words, is use punitive measures for consumers. If I would use a simple example, look at cars. You buy a car, you got your carbon tax, you buy your fuel, you got all various forms of tax, right? And each time something goes up in those things, what happens to their usage? It drops. Same needs to be applied to all other things that are not friendly to our environment. As it stands right now, a few of them have these punitive attachments to them. You can find that you're going to buy something which is very pollutive in nature. Actually, in the manufacturing side of things, I think you may attest that some of the worst performing equipment is actually cheap to buy. So those are some of the problems that we have, that as a consumer, it's only natural for me to go buy what is cheap. But once cheap is no more something that is detrimental, then we're going somewhere. So we need more legislation, or whether it's going to be taxes or whatever, that will discourage the use of materials that are detrimental to our environment.
Do you have anything to add?
Yeah, maybe the question was if I got it right, the role of what consumers in the
role of the citizen.
Yeah, I think that it's very important that the citizen is very important in the whole matrix, because for starters they are part of the value chain. Yeah, they are part of the value chain. In the waste management sector, we find that we rely on the communities for they're part of the waste collection value chain. We get our material from them, but they're also responsible for generating the waste. So we find that in some cases we've got a huge debate in terms of who is responsible for generating waste. Is it the company or is it the consumer? There's a never-ending discussion, debate on that. Who is the culprit? Is it the company or the consumer? Yeah, so it's a constituent that we cannot afford to ignore. But I just say that the issue of awareness is big. It's a big problem, not just with the citizens, but throughout the value chain, including a lot of businesses, sometimes at government level. There's lack of awareness on basic things that have to happen to achieve circularity.
Yeah. You're absolutely right. And Raymond, your idea to tax the citizen more than we're already taxing them. I don't know. I think I'm more about positive reinforcement. Let's incentivize them to become circular. So with that in mind, I wanted to also ask about, we spoke about the state of circularity in Zimbabwe from an individual perspective where we naturally use buckets to bath, for example. We recycle the plastic in our homes. People are creating businesses using the plastics that they collect and turning them into different materials. But some would even go further to ask, like, why doesn't every household in Zimbabwe right now have solar? How has that not been put into whatever overarching macro plans that maybe there's a 5-year plan that people are paying back to the government? Are we going to get back to where we were, which is like the linear model when things are functioning in Zimbabwe? Right now it's happened out of necessity, but how do we put it into the design of our economy? How do we design circularity as opposed to it just coming to us because we have all these linear barriers?
Okay, given I'm the one holding the mic. Right, when you look at the issue you're raising, I think I might be tempted to go back to his point of awareness. Our starting point, you realize that is we're not doing the right thing. If I were to even go as far to saying, if I were to look at the behavior of Zimbabwean consumers as it stands right now, we're actually disinvesting in the good practices that we had. So I would say we will need to invest as a nation into lifestyle or behavioral change. And this behavioral change is not, I'm not just focusing on the consumer, but it's from the person who manufactures the product all the way to the person who uses the product at the end of its life. So I think that for me, might be a starting point to say, let's invest in educating people, making them aware. And then the other things that, of course, that are needed will only make sense when they're there. And also to add, I think I was mentioning some other group discussion to say, for us as humanity is a learner, and we learn by seeing. So at times, it takes us to see something working for us to adopt it. So I suppose it's good that we have our cohorts that we are incubating, that when they graduate to that level where they become commercialized, and we're seeing all the flora of their products, then maybe we will start realizing that, okay, so I can actually use this. I can actually buy these goodies from her. She's now producing some various forms of recycled products that I can use in my own house. Then maybe we might might be in the right direction then.
All right. Yeah, but maybe we can move on to the next question. As Raymond said, where do we start? Within Zimbabwe, we have various industries that produce waste that could or that are already circular, but which industry do we start? You were talking about agriculture, food waste, plastic waste, and who really should be at the center of this? Who should be driving it, and how do we finance it? We can talk about solar on every household, but where is the capital come from for that?
To answer your first question, where do we start? I really don't think, this is my personal opinion. I need to put that disclaimer. When we were doing this study in the 3 countries, each country decided to choose a different waste stream. And when I look at it, I don't think it's neither here nor there. The idea is just to start. Because there aren't any particular waste streams that are that have everything for you to that are ready for you to move with. When you looked at the decision-making process that Zimbabwe took, they said the plastic waste is very advanced at the moment, and it seems to be moving on its own. It doesn't seem to need any helping hand for it to come in. But organic waste, you look at organic waste, the amount of organic waste that we have every time when you do that pie chart, the biggest chunk of household waste is organic waste, but no one is handling it. No one is doing much, not no one, sorry. There are few players who are actually actively working on that particular waste stream. And why is that? We need to maybe stimulate that to also function. Then the rationale in other countries, in Malawi, for example, was plastic waste is the one that seems to be an easy, what you call it, there's that expression? Hey, that one. It's a low-hanging fruit. So if we put all our efforts in this, we're likely to realize the fruits very quickly, and we'll be able to make it work. So for me, I don't think it really, there's a bad or good start to a bad place to start from. Wherever you start, the point is just to start. Oh, and then how can we finance?
Yes.
Well,
PFund.
PFund will finance the businesses, the Helens, the Traces, right? The companies who are actually doing some work in there. And like I said, PFund will help you through the process. They support you by doing coaching until your project actually becomes bankable. So the minimum time that we actually work with you, if you're a company, will be 3 months. And the maximum will be about 18 months. And you don't pay anything to me as an advisor. You don't pay anything to PFund, because we recognize that, okay, because my time is funded, first and foremost, by UNIAO, and it's an organization that recognizes that there's a certain level or a time when a business is transitioning from development to commercialization, and it's impossible for them to be able to pay for the services that we offer, but the services are necessary, right? When it comes now to financing a country like this, right? There are climate change funds that are there. I'm not very much an expert on that one, but I know that they are there, and I know that the colleagues at the Ministry of Environment are always complaining that Zimbabwe is the only one that's actually not actually tapping into it. So I think if you're interested, you need to be able to be knocking on their doors. I find them very, very easy to work with. That ministry, they're very hands-on. And at times, they're always telling you, we've got co-funding for this, but we don't know where to use it. So I would urge people who are interested to talk to them. This particular project that we were talking about was funded by CTCN, and CTCN is very, very keen on secularity. But I'll let Mr. Makanda talk more about it if he knows. That's as much as I know about financing.
Okay, thank you. I'll just touch a bit on it. I think I'll go back actually to the definition of CEO to answer this one, or to add value to what you're saying. Circular economy is the question that says, yes, we've realized all these climate change issues and so on. So what then next? And circular economy comes in as one of the answers to what then next. I think we've got our responsible production, consumption and production, you've got your resource efficiency and cleaner production, you've got all these tools. And circular economy is considered as one of the tools that will help us to meet our climate change goals. So in terms of CTCN, there's been, through its various donor community, there's been money that has poured into promoting circularity with the agenda of meeting our climate goals, which means you're going to be looking at your emissions and so on, your water consumption and so on. So those are parameters that through circular economy they are also addressed as part and parcel of the activities. So in terms of the actual value, that how much has been put on the table, I would lie. But building on the work they were doing as TNO, the idea is to then attract the bigger bag. So recommendation is for those who are having their small enterprises that they're building is to keep an eye out for this. And hopefully I'll also be still around to help you see it when it comes. Because on one hand, as said, we're also members of the CTCN, so we get to see what's on the table.
Rejoice?
In terms of where do we start, I think I would also be in agreement with what Chandi said, to say, you know what, we just start whatever is available, then we'd encourage people to just start, even on a small scale. While the policy issues are trying to be addressed, probably whatever evidence is generated from the little work that is being done will auction probably aid whatever decisions will be made at the top. So I would also be in agreement with that, you know what, wherever people can start, they can start. As SNV, we actually have a program. Unfortunately, it's a youth program that is targeting youth aged between 15 and 35 years of age. So, and as long as the youth are based within the districts that we're working in, there's also some level of support that can be provided for those startups that want. I know currently we've got some youth that now also want to venture into, I think actually they've been aggregators or collecting the waste, but they now also want to move to actually manufacturing. There are some products from the waste that they collect themselves. So there is a bit of funding that is available. And normally our funding, because it's grant funding, it also gives space for those that are still innovating or are still, trying out new things. We are also available to then support those ones before they can qualify for Chandi's funding.
Okay. I'll try to also submit my contribution in terms of where do we start. I think that there's already some traction in various sectors, various waste streams. I think that's already a good starting point. We know Dr. Winguri does vermiculture and all that. That's already a project that we know is happening. I'm not sure of the scope and capacity and so forth, but I would imagine that will be a better starting point to build capacity and kind of develop an anchor project where the other projects can then be developed from. Yeah, so that would be my contribution. I think let's just build on what is already happening, maybe at a very small scale or a big scale, and take it to the next level. I think that is my contribution.
Okay, go ahead.
Maybe I can also quickly add that our study developed a roadmap for Zimbabwe. So it's also maybe where the country can start from as well, because it actually lists a lot of priorities or priority areas that that the country can actually look at. And we also tried to look at a pilot project, which we did what we call scoping study, not feasibility studies, and what can actually happen from there. So I think one of the places where you may also want to look at, if you are thinking about it, is to look at the study that we did.
Okay, thank you. And is it available already?
We just finished it, the project just finished here in April. So I just saw some comments coming from CTC and that we are almost there. So as soon as it is ready, I'm sure we should be able to share it.
Okay, great. Thank you so much.
Just to interject before you continue. So from a government perspective, everything goes according to their desires or ambitions. In terms of, there's also to be development of some incubation projects which will also promote or showcase circular economy. So I'm saying this now so that people who are going to be interested in that scope or should a platform to prepare themselves and be knocking at the ministry doors with their projects.
Okay, great, fantastic. I was hoping that somebody would say it starts here with all these people at Impact of Harare, the people that brought all of you here. No, yeah, but thank you guys so much for the discussion. I do want to include the audience into the discussions. So anyone with questions or anything, I'm going to have Hope assist me, and then maybe you can have questions for the panel.
Thank you very much for your presentations. They were so insightful. We learned a lot from what you said. And I want to say, in addition to that, we can actually use the media to let the whole country know all forms of media, television, internet, social media, Facebook. We can also use even the radio, because many people out there don't know that such things are happening. They don't know. If we go outside right now and ask about circular economy, they won't know what's happening. But a lot of good things are happening out there. And on the issues pertaining to funding from Ministry of Environment, we've got Global Environment Facility, Small Grants Program, which funds up to 50,000 US dollars if you write bankable project proposals. We also have Global Climate Facility for climate change funding, and we also have AFRI100. There's a challenge that's out there that we want to plant up to 100 million trees. And if you have a project proposal whereby you want to plant trees and you're a private company, that is funded by AFRI100. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. So I'm going to ask, before you answer, that you introduce yourself, and please stand, because online it will be better so that we can hear you better. Thanks.
My name is Wadzanai. I'm with a company called Power Ventures Africa. I've got a number of questions. For Petrico, you mentioned that you're a consortium of companies that are working with PET bottles. And you mentioned that the problem that's there is the design. So my question to you is, since you are the customers for these bottles, aren't you able to, because you've got bargaining power with your suppliers, to dictate what you want, to tell them, if we're going to buy a PET bottle for you to bottle our Coca-Cola or our Mirinda or whatever, it should meet a particular standard, or rather to say it should have this type of a material, it should have that, it should have this, it should be certified according to this, so that when then Petrico comes in to do the recycling, then they're not facing any challenges. So don't you have maybe on the side, as a consortium of companies, maybe a way that you can then dictate to your suppliers to say your designs must have 1, 2, 3. Then Asen, you mentioned that you're actually working in different sectors where you are looking at the issue of waste. I want to find out if you've done anything with regards to the energy sector, with regards to solar, because solar panels are actually, right now we've got a boom in the country, but they're actually a huge source of e-waste. We're looking, I'm talking sustainability here, and we're looking at 25 years from today. So we're gonna have a challenge which is coming, which is looming actually, where we are going to have a challenge in working with now panels that would have been decommissioned. So do you guys have something that you're doing with regards to the research to assist us, so that by the time we get to 25 years, we know how we're going to deal with our solar waste, because that's a looming issue that we have. And the second one, for you, Essen, is on the capacitation of Emma, because we've got an EIA process that we have for every project. You have to go through an EIA process. Have you managed to also capacitate Emma so that they also include the secular aspect in their EIA, so that this now becomes impactful, and everyone who wants to venture into a project will know that they have to tick the secular box with Emma before they're given a go-ahead. Then, SNV. I'm sorry, guys. I'm just gonna... I'm coming at all of you. SNV, you've mentioned that you're doing projects with the youth. Normally what happens with such projects is the sustainability component, the afterlife of the project when it closes. So what are you doing to address that? Because you capacitate the youth, they go out there, they're doing good, funding comes to an end. Then 2 years down the line, they're back on the street or they're doing something else. So have you come up with a roadmap, or rather partners, that are going to sort of incubate these youths after the OYE project closes? TNO. You went through the policy documents and you saw that there were a lot of gaps. So in your recommendations, are you coming up with possible models or channels to capacitate the policymakers so that they're able to actually then address the secular issues within the issue of policies, so that we have something that is impactful? And do you have also a model that is going to help us to bridge the gap that's there? Because it looks like policy is there and implementation is there. So is there a way that we can bridge this and come up with impactful and useful results that can be spoken about in Zimbabwe? I think for now, I'm good.
Yes, I'll go in first. Thank you so much for that question, where you asked about whether we do have the cloud to influence the issue of design. The point that I want to make first is that we are a consortium, but we are a private limited company. So outside of our scope, we do not influence or do not have any power to influence the decision that other companies can make in terms of their designs. So we don't have that power, unfortunately. We can only persuade, we can only use moral suasion. We believe that we do have a regulator in our industry, who is EMA. They have the legal mandate, I think, to correct certain issues that are not in line. But we on the ground, I think the issue of design is something that we picked out of experience to realize that I think the biggest contribution that companies can make to recycling is actually design. A lot of companies think that it's about money. It's because if you look at us, we are sponsored, we are funded by certain companies, and our membership is open to the rest of the industry. So every company that is into PET can become part of Petrocosium, because we are trying to address a cross-cutting problem. Okay. But a lot of companies think that because their money is involved, then they don't want to come in. But what we are saying is that what we actually need is for them to help us recycle by designing their products well. Because the issue now with waste collection and recycling is that our waste pickers are not able to cherry pick which containers to pick for recycling. So they pick every PET bottle from anyone. And now from that, we are trying to process that material. We realize that this bottle is not properly designed. This label is not supposed to be in there. And we know that there are various considerations, mostly marketing, because companies design their products to sell. So then they appeal to the customers. Unfortunately, we don't have that power. We can only persuade. We've been trying to engage other experts to say, can we perhaps have some awareness, some workshops, where we can bring in manufacturing and just talk about design. You know, there's a concept called design for recycling, where we just share the information, say, how can you contribute to the recycling industry without you putting a cent in it? And the design for recycling, I think, is something that we are pushing. Thank you.
I'm afraid I'm going to have disappointing answers for you. All right. As to the first question that you asked, are we having any work with solar panel? Sadly, we have not done anything in that area, but that's something that I guess with my colleagues we can take up and look at it and see how we're performing as a country in terms of management of solar panel waste, and we'll probably see what infrastructures there in place. Then in terms of, we're talking about Emma, I guess I would say our starting point for us will be actually with the ministries with the ministry itself. And the simple response is we got a long lecture from the Ministry of Environment, and the long lecture was very simple and straightforward. Where have you been, you guys, whilst we're busy trying to find solutions to these circular economy issues? So I would say, to answer you best, is our where we are at is where with ministry and its arms, we're basically still in the infancy in terms of the discussions on what we can partner on or work on with them so that we then realize circular economy. But indirectly, I know my sister over there, she was not aware, but one of their teammates, TNO, that she was working with, is actually one of our colleagues. So we have small feet finding a way, especially when it comes to the legislative side of things. But definitely we're getting there.
I hope you're getting answered, Wazi. All right. So the issue of sustainability of projects. Yes, I think this one tends to be one of the challenges that most of the organizations that are in our space, which is the development organization space, face. But how we have tried to structure our project, like specifically for the OEA project, is working with private partners. We normally, we are mostly merely like a facilitator, where we are working with the market. We identify an opportunity for this. In this case, I'm going to mention Petro because it's one of the companies that we have partnered with. They share their opportunities. They also say within their already existing business model, where do they see the youth fitting in? So when the youth are coming on board, yes, we are there to just provide that space where we also maybe do capacity building and provide maybe the soft and technical skills training. But normally the rest of the work is done by the private sector, such that in the event that the project ends and funding is no longer available, we are then hoping that because we have had this youth incorporated into already existing business models or functioning companies, then they can continue working with the companies. So we just there make the introductions, make the relationship work, then we oversee from outside.
Okay. It sounds like a very easy question, the one that you asked, but it's actually quite a difficult one. I will tell you what we did. And I hope that will answer the question that you asked. You're asking, we identified gaps, right? So what have we done about it? Have we actually been able to recommend? How we identified gaps, it's easy to say we identified gaps, right? But at times, let me give you the process. What we did is basically we looked at the policies in Zimbabwe and we looked at policies in Malawi and in Zambia. And our first point of call was to compare the three countries. And then we looked at also other countries that, because the three countries themselves didn't have any policies on circular economy. They had waste management policies. And then we also looked at the policies like the agriculture policy that would actually be a market for the waste that would be generated. Those are the type of policies that we looked at. So we didn't do all policies, we looked at the ones that were relevant to what we were looking for. And we were specifically looking for whether these policies would enable the country to transition to secularity. It was limited in us trying to see whether we would be able to recommend if there was any need for a new policy to be developed, and if it was supposed to be developed, what was already missing within the policies. How we sort of like got, we benchmarked that with other countries that have adopted secular economy. And South Africa seems to be transitioning there, but they really didn't have anything that we could actually use. So our next port of call was the international world. So the policies that we found that were closest or that we could relate to as Southern Africa were the EU policies. And we took our policies and we benchmarked them on the ones on the principles that the EU policies had been built on, and they actually, how to say it, they were actually very good. Our policies are actually very good. They contained almost all the criteria that we picked from the EU policies, because the EU is a group of countries, right? So they also had different countries that had different policies, but they needed to come up with something for everyone else. And in their analysis, they actually said that it was not necessary for their member states to come up with new policies, because their waste management policies contained those aspects that were required for them to transition. What they ended up then doing was coming up with a circular economy action plan. So when we did the analysis now based on that, on those principles that I'm talking about, we really looked at issues to do with whether we have separation at source, because you really need to recover at household level, at collection level, at disposal level. We looked at issues to do with reporting, whether the collectors are actually reporting how much waste is there, because the companies that remanufacture eventually have to know, they need that for their planning, right? So we looked at those criteria. Our policies were standing up very well to that. So we recommended that, but where they were not standing up was the practice. We looked at what was written on paper, and we would go and physically check whether these were there. And then we now talked to the stakeholders to say, where do you see the policy gaps coming in? And then would compare with what is on paper. We noticed that the discrepancy was mostly not that it's not on paper, but that it's not being practiced or it's not being enforced, right? So our recommendations were towards that, to say we now need to, okay, let me give you a good example. Sorry, Helen, you're a guinea pig here. A good example is when you look at waste collection in Zimbabwe, it is the responsibility of local authorities, but there is there's a policy, there's a statute which actually allows local authorities to subcontract that service to private sector, right? And private sector is doing it now, not, I don't think because they are contracted by local authorities. It's a need. It's me who is a private citizen who says, Helen, can you come and collect for me, right? In Zambia, we have a similar situation where there's a policy which allows local authorities to actually subcontract, right? But in Zambia now, it's more practical. The local authority is the one that says, okay, Helen, your zone is this one. Your zone is this one. Your zone is this one. And then the residents now pay to Helen, and Helen is the one who deals with the local authorities. In Zimbabwe, we have a case where now this is the statute says Helen can do that work, but local authority has not integrated it. So you have a double charge. I pay rates, but I also pay Helen, right? So you now, if I answered you, So our recommendation now comes to, okay, there is this gap in practice. Can we now, can you now as local authorities or as policymakers try and help transition so that this becomes more, yeah, sorry.
Thank you so much. My name's Reverend Gibson Botomani. I'm representing two organizations, SALT and CORD. First things first, I'm interested in policy. Maybe it could be the time that we can correct each other. Immediately there was a statement where local authorities are said that there's no policy and how they are doing it. A case in point is Bulawayo City Council. Bulawayo City Council is subcontracting and it pays. Secondly, I don't know whether Emma is represented here. The local authorities are mandated to have what they call local environment action plan committees, which are also spearheaded by the citizen. The unfortunate thing that we have in our country is the participation which is enshrined in our constitution, which is not actualized. At times things are done as we are doing here. It's all top down. Where is the resident? We are assuming the role of the residents here. By the end of the day, our uptake will be next to zero. Because I was expecting to see possibly the likes of Precious Shumba in attendance, where information dissemination would be easy to the common person, or even bring the common person here to hear it from the horse's mouth. This is what the way we want to go. This is what we are doing as a country. How can we actually harness and benefit as a country? Therefore, I go by participation. There is SNV. There is a group of people called community health clubs. We have heard about these people. When we are talking about incentivizing, Liquid, Econet, they are doing this litter sorting at source in Grandview, where they are doing it. When you go there, the common person who is doing this are the community health club members. But check on the incentive. They get next to zero. They are made to gather tons and tons of litter or waste. But what is put on the scale, and then they get nothing out of that. But we are talking here that there's money in all this. And then you are talking about it targeting the 15 to 35 age groups. Already there's a gap there. The person who is 15, who is going to be involved in litter waste picking, is going to be likely to be a school dropout. And you are going to perpetuate that. And you are going to create dropouts. And this is true. Go to any dump site. Who is doing litter picking there? Young people, the school dropouts. Only in Ngozi Mine in Bulawayo you might see old people staying there. It's a pity that at one stage or another, we are propagating school dropouts because of our target groups. I would actually maybe suggest to you, you pick the elderly women who are now involved with the community health clubs as your target group to work with towards such a project, so that we do not create a generation of school dropouts. So on incentive and your target group, I'm also saying let's revise that so that we do not have child labor being actually in the manner of being persuaded or propagated in a way of trying to clean our environment. And then I've got an issue where we said, where can it be started? Where can it start? There's motivation that should be given to the community. If my household, I sort litter, and there's nobody to pick the litter, the trucks, as Helen said, there are only 8 functional trucks by the dump site, by the central office, workshop, whatever. Only 8. That means to say Harare, as a local authority, is not taking it as its own obligation to collect a litter that has been sorted at the source. So what is it that we want to achieve by the end of the day, where we do not have the value chain being complemented, as one of the panelists said it? You correctly nailed it, that We do not have that complementary service that is being given to the people. So where is the city of Harare represented here? That it can actually participate in this discourse. And then marketing strategy, we are speaking today, we are gathered here. Are we represented as ITF? We know it is one of the highest magnitude as far as advertising is concerned. But already we are having a parallel meeting. Are we represented? This is how we are failing to harness from what we have put as Zimbabwe ourselves. So that marketing becomes, we use the correct tools in marketing what we want and speaking the voice that we should speak with to the public and in the international world. And I go to the package that is being given by our sister. She says she starts with organizations where they are to become bankable to about 50,000 USD, who in the community would actually pass or qualify to be given a 50,000. Already we are starting from a social exclusive approach where the common person who is involved in waste management or the small business is already excluded. Because is she bankable to actually get 50,000 worth of US dollar? Her business is not yet there. Tracy is there. She's not yet bankable to that tune. So we see also the small medium enterprise that we try to envisage in the country is also disadvantaged by the target, by the preconditions that we set. Why can't we set some standards that are conducive or to promote, or which are easy to promote the small scale business? Because if you look at it, those who are involved in this type of business are the small scale people. Therefore, we go to this statement that I say, the idea that we are selling, we are using the capitalist approach. We need to go back to the local communist socialist approach where we actually support the indigenous person who is able to actually get the low-hanging fruits. You give that person 500 to invest. That person will be ready to say, if I go back with an interest of $20 to the funder, she will be interested to give me another $500. But if you give that person, say, no, we only qualify people who are 50,000 worthy, then there's a problem. So let's go back to invest in the indigenous person such that the indigenous person is able qualifies to do this. Because the capitalist approach is whereby we are saying, the tonnage that you are bringing here, we cannot deal with it. As Tracy said, she's told that she can only have a contractor who is able to do her packaging of a million plus. But she's not yet there. Who will do that? Then waste continues to dump. And then there's this component in waste management. I've looked at it from this perspective. When we are creating centers for waste, we are also promoting the local authorities not to collect waste. Because the moment you are saying somebody is going to pick waste there, sort it in different categories, why would the city of Harare rush to collect that waste? That's why we've got heaps of dumps. Go to Zambia. They had mountains of garbage by 2003. But today, it's nothing. There's nothing. Their waste was used to resurface their potholed roads then. But in Zimbabwe, if you talk to an engineer of city of Harare, he will tell you that we are not allowed by policy to get this debris to resurface our roads. Where are we? Thank you so much.
Thank you for the contributions. I think some of it also came as advice and some of it was questions. So I think I'll just tackle what was addressed to SNV. Then I'll pass it on to my colleague who will also respond to some of the issues. In terms of our project, you mentioned in terms of the age range, the youth that we are targeting. So I think with our project, we actually realized that there's a gap in terms of what's being offered by the formal education system in terms of technical skills and what the project is offering. So I think, at least now, I think with the younger generation, we also realize that I think the curriculum actually has been changed. It's now covering a lot more things compared to when things were done, I think way back. And I think they also have started, they've chosen to start with the lower grades. And then I think it would then spill into the higher grades as we are going. And then I'm sure you're also aware that when you are engaging someone who's below 18, normally you also need the consent of the parent for them to participate in anything. And also that if they are below age of 18, they will not be able to participate in any activity in the project that requires them to be employed. So because they are under the legal age of majority, they do not have any IDs or whatever. So normally when it comes to them accessing loans, accessing any financial support, they have to be 18. And those that are between the ages between 15 to 18, normally if they require to attend training specifically, because we offer basic life skills training, which just give you a bit of things that are necessary, like your professionalism, how to conduct yourself in the community, in the world that we are living in. Normally those then they get consent from parents. We are also working in the districts where we are. The Ministry of Education is also part of what we are doing. So whenever we are overstepping, they also tend to also then, pull us back and guide us on the correct way so that we also don't seem like we're exploiting the younger generation. Thank you.
Okay. Yes, like Rejoice, I'll also take some of the comments that you made as advice. But I just wanted to clarify certain aspects that you also raised. With the communities in our study, we consulted fully. In fact, we did a waste characterization study, and our waste characterization study was in Bulawayo and in Harare. And we consulted also the local authorities. They were a key player in our study and in informing us what is there and what is not there. The waste characterization study covered households in low-income areas, in high-income areas, and medium-income areas in the two cities that I talked about. Over and above that, while we didn't do consultations with those, while we didn't do household waste characterization studies, we also consulted, I think, about 32 local authorities in the country. So they were also represented, and some of them, including rural district councils like Gokwe, they were also part of the stakeholders that we consulted. So just for you to be very comfortable that we tried as much as possible to be fully consultative and to get our information, not just from Harare, not just from a few people. In terms of, and we also consulted all the value chains. I think I explained it when I was also speaking. We consulted stakeholders in the value chains, from the waste pickers, from the collectors, the aggregators, all the way to manufacturers, remanufacturers. And we even, because we were also talking to the households directly, there were some remanufacturing activities that were actually happening in households that are not happening, and we also included those. And most of those were also being done by women, and we also came out with a recommendation in terms of how to include gender issues in our in the secularity, in the secular economy, in the secular economy issues. In terms of the collection points and the local authority ending up not collecting, that is the point. That is the point. The local authority shouldn't have to collect waste if all waste is going to be recovered to be used as a resource. So I'm not going to lie to you. That is the point. That's where we want to get to, because that's where we see secularity going. Then there was the issue of the thresholds. I get you. But there's another story behind the PFAN one. PFAN has positioned itself in a space which is different from other stakeholders. There are other stakeholders like SNV, ILO, and other organizations that give grants of the magnitude that you're talking about. Then there are other players who also give, like AECF, EEP, that give grants from 250,000 onwards, right? So there are different players in the sector who are targeting different target groups. PFAN is not 50,000. It's 1 million to 50 million. So we are targeting those organizations that have graduated from SNV, from Rejoice to AECF up to this slide, right? It's sort of like we have positioned ourselves deliberately because we don't want to step on other people's toes, right? We are funded by UNIDO. It's a UN group, right? You've got UNDP that also offers certain types of grants. UNIDO is dealing with companies that are now transitioning, not the ones that are still in development. There are other players that are in development, right? So I think, in my mind, everyone is covered. And it doesn't necessarily just have to be PFAN. What is important, what we try to do, and maybe where we could be lacking, is in linking up with each other. And we're trying to do that. And that's why we try to work with other stakeholders, so much that when they feel that the companies that they've been working with have grown and are now ready for this type of funding, then they recommend for them to move the other way. I hope I've answered you.
And probably just one comment to say to my pastor that when practicing CE, circular economy, the process dictates. We are very much aware of the inequalities, the wrong things that are happening in our so-called clean practices. And this is part of the drive of circular economy, that some of these things that are happening are not right. They resemble unequal rights in all forms and so forth. So if you're implementing circular economy, it means you're going to also respect the labor laws, you're going to respect the equity policies, and a whole host of other things that even our country does not have on paper. Because we're trying to say the social component also needs to be seriously addressed. So that at the end of the day, when I say we've got this nice, beautiful product, we should all be celebrating and saying, yes, this is perfect and good, because all of us are benefiting from it and are proud of it. Then also to say, just to build, to pick on the classification, I was simply saying, there's Ray. I'm starting my project. At that stage, I'm just basically an entrepreneur with an idea. Then that idea is built into a project that I then is now making a bit of money, right? But it's very difficult. I think in Zimbabwe, I'm failing to find the correct term for it. But from that stage, you graduate to be what we call in Zimbabwe my SMEs, right? Then from the SME stage, you are now gone full scale to a seriously commercial enterprise. So at each of those stages, you've got, like she was saying, organization. And usually they should I say, graduation from just being an idea to an SME level kind of thing. It's very difficult to really find organizations that fund sizable chunks of money for that. But what you get, people, I think maybe she mentioned it a bit, who are willing to give those small $500 packages or something like that. But mainly, what you get is assistance to develop yourself and your organization into an SME. And that's what you'll find. And this is where you'll find in that workspace, you've got our own organization here, Impact Hub, which help you to incubate your idea into a viable business. Once it becomes a viable business, they can easily, like she was saying, then push you on to the next group of financiers, and the cycle goes on. So probably, like she was saying, the challenge is those interactions and information sharing issues.
Just not to be left out. The pastor asked if we are represented at the ZITF. Yes, we are. As Patrick, we are at the ZITF. But I thought the point that was of interest that he raised was is the city council failing to collect because there are transfer stations that are propping up. I take a different view. I think that these interventions are coming because municipalities are failing to collect, to fulfill their mandate. And that is creating opportunities for other people to come in. That is my view.
Okay, so we're heading towards the end of the program. So if you have any burning questions or comments that no one else has addressed, just think about it. Something that no one else has said before that you feel like needs to be said.
Well, I'll be talking about innovation. The lady who presented that business, the company she started on value addition and so on, I found it very innovative because she was packaging knowledge from our community, from our various sources, and local material coming out of the products. I was very excited by that. When we come to West, one thing we have to recognize is that by nature, with our society, unfortunately, it's a problem. But with West, let's recognize one point. Atinama trucks, no tipper trucks, which we make. Our engineering ability to generate our own solutions, our own equipment is still quite low. Atina fuel, tinofana kutuunza petrol from somewhere. Spares we do not have. Money to pay workers is not even sufficient. Land the for transfer stations, I'm not sure whether we got it, but they could be there. Landfills, engineered dump sites, we do not have again. It's a problem. But, I don't know why we continue talking about these things which are not there and continue pushing them hard on ourselves. Why? Why can't we look for alternatives? Why do we have to say, kuti, tinofana kuimpota road from Italy and somewhere there? Why? And all the evidence, the studies which have been done here clearly show that the current systems are not working and they are not sustainable, but we continue pushing them. Here's my take. I'm saying this because we have developed the technologies which are very much basic and locally generated, patented, but hakuna kana munhu wani wokuminidza kuvashoma vanouya kuzoona zvako, but munhu akashedza kuti handei kuItaly, you come running with the technologies which are not exactly addressing the issues I've spoken about, So in my view is this. I like the attitude which has been taken by University of Zimbabwe recently. They have come up with some competition for innovations. We have submitted our own abstract. And this is good. It's what we need are innovations. The circular economy does not need, it's no longer the same as we've been looking at, how we've been looking at things. We need innovations. The circular economy is looking at, a lot of it is about guided by nature. This is why I think Chad was quite right. In our own work in My company, our company is called Zim Earthworm Farms and the Georgiatis. We work with biodegradable waste. We produce a lot of organic fertilizers which are on the market across the whole country right now, and very effective fertilizers, but based on organic waste. And we've come up with a very innovative utility device that we know is, we've actually called it the septic tank of biodegradable waste. You know, the septic tank, as you know, was a very effective utility device invented by Frenchmen more than 200 years ago, but it's still in use now and celebrated by most local authorities. But we have not had a utility device for biodegradable waste, and that is why we have a serious challenge right now. There is no device, and everybody's still dreaming of transfer station, and so on. But it's also we've come up with a device that we've called the JATI, Decongestator Sanitation System. No smell, no flies, no fly comes there, and you produce a fertilizer, not a compost, a fertilizer. And this is done at your home. You do it yourself. We've quite a number already dotted in urban areas, in rural areas right now. And again, we've also come up with a system that we call the JATI Decongestator Sanitation System, responding to water scarcity, biodegradable waste, including human excreta. Remember, a circular economy requires us to regenerate. It's a circular, we have to be guided by nature. Why should your own waste go to Mfakose when you live in Highfields? Your waste belongs to you. It must be yours. It must be yours. That's how nature is. We've given you an example of a tree. A tree's leaves, that is its waste, falls down there and it becomes its own food. Let's learn from that. And we do not, when I visited China in 1987, I went into a toilet. Below it was a foreshore, so you would, after whatever I did, they would take the foreshore and go, Munda. You know? We have to learn from nature, and let's be innovative. I would like to call on organizations like SNV and so on. Create an innovation competition, the grand challenges. That is good. For local people, localize it, but focusing on a specific problem. So something like that. But anyway, I would talk the whole day. but remember what I'm just saying. When you talk of circular economy, and some of the papers I've been reading, they always say one of the missing links in a circular economy is the earthworm. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I think what the doctor was saying really just wraps up everything that we were talking about, and that's Zimbabwe. We are not encumbered by all these linear advancements for the most part, that these guys are trying to go back. If you think about it, small batch processing and everything that we've had in the past is where everybody's going back to. But because we haven't gone so forward, it's easier for us to go back further. So talking about self-sustainability, what works in our country, what are the resources that we have available to us. You see, I'm like wrapping up, and sorry if you guys had extra questions. We can continue the conversation over lunch, but now I'm just going to thank my panelists. Everybody give them like and I'm going to call on Tazoka Chirai, who's the CEO of Impact Harare, to just close for us. And I don't know what she's going to do. Are you going to pray? Like, we don't know.
I'm just going to say closed. No. And I'm not going to do Man in the Arena. There's a running joke that I always read that. But I am going to take the words of it and the meaning of it. Really, today has been such an amazing forum. Thank you so much to our panelists. We really appreciate you, and thank you to everyone who attended. You know, it gives me such hope and joy to actually see that so many people are engaged concerning circularity, recycling, you know, living more sustainably, social impact, and this is really special. And the reason I wanted to refer to Men in the Arena is I think it's, there's so much we can criticize or look at that is not working. When we look at circular economy, when we look at, we have so much that we can say that, oh, but this doesn't work out. Oh, but, this effort is not fully developed and it could do better. It's easy to criticize. But the men and the women in the arena who are doing something, even if you're just recycling in your home, even if you just are doing one slight thing, even if you talk about it on social media or to someone, in whatever small way, you're in the arena. And I think that is absolutely commendable. And this is something that I'm just like, wow, look at these organizations, and also individuals who are doing something, and we'll get there, but we just need to, keep just building on each other's efforts, and keep pushing. And I love the fact that, on the side of businesses, really looking at being more sustainable, because I think businesses really, cover a lot of ground in terms of, employing people, setting the pace for, opportunities and things like that. And, if we're able to support those businesses as well, even though maybe the services cost a little bit more, but it's helping the greater good. So it's really amazing, and I want to commend all these men and women in the arena. So thank you so much. Please stay engaging with us. There is a live stream of this on Area 46 YouTube page. So please, if you want to rewatch, if you want to share, we would love that. And we don't want this to be, the end of this. We want to keep engaging. We want to see what we can do better, how we can continue to bring people together for a positive social impact. So thank you so much for attending. Thank you again to our panelists, and please just keep pushing in whatever small way you can to become more circular.
And lunch is served.